Welcome to Conlang Critic, the show that gets facts wrong about your favorite conlang. I'm Misali, and in this episode, we'll be looking at the language that insists it isn't English, Vötgil. I'm a bit excited because this episode is a first in a few ways. It's the first episode that was requested, thank you JCPK, it's the first episode about a language that isn't notable enough to have a Wikipedia article, and it's the first episode about an auxiliary language. Sure, we've covered international languages, but Vötgil was specifically designed for international communication as its primary goal. That means I have an excuse to scrutinize the heck out of the language's internationality potential. First things first, Vötgil is an auxlang created by Jack Eisenman in 2012, based on an earlier language he made that was straight up called English, but spelled with a Q, which, as the name might imply, was just meant to be a simplified version of English. The point of Vötgil is pretty much the same, a version of English modified to be more useful for international use. Since this is a newish language, its reference grammar is available both as a PDF file and as a series of videos. Wait, what's this? White text? Black background? Short, direct videos full of slightly wrong linguistic information? Have I been unknowingly copying this guy's style this entire time? Actually, no, that's dumb. We have a lot to cover, so let's get to the phonology. So, like every other aspect of Vötgil, its phonology is meant to be like English, but simpler. For reference, here's all the consonants that are in English. B, D, G, P, T, K, J, Ch, V, Z, J, F, S, Sh. Sometimes w, r, y, sometimes and l. And here's all the consonants that are in Vötgil. As you can see, it's pretty much the same with only a few differences, namely the change in spelling, which we'll get to in a bit, and the removal of the voiced post-alveolar affricate, the velar fricative, and the voiceless labiovelar approximant, which, as far as a simpler version of English phonology goes, is a good start, I guess? I mean, if you're cutting sounds from English, obviously the first one you want to remove is the velar fricative, because it's absent from the majority of English dialects, and the second one to be removed is the voiceless W sound, because it's absent from a lot of the most common English dialects. After that, Vötgil decides to remove the distinction between j and j, which is a pretty good idea since it's not a very common distinction cross-linguistically. You know what else isn't very common cross-linguistically? Dental fricatives. Heck, dental fricatives aren't even in all the dialects of English. I mean, at least get rid of one of them, since the distinction between th and th only matters for two pairs of words in English. Actually, looking through Vötgil's vocabulary, it doesn't look like there's any meaningful distinction between them anywhere, so there isn't any reason for them to be called different phonemes. Speaking of meaningless distinctions, the velar and alveolar nasals seem to only have one minimal pair, ning and nin. It kind of feels like Vötgil only makes these distinctions because English makes them. Ideally, the consonants would look something like this. See, that's an inventory limited only to sounds that are common, and you can still speak English recognizably with only these consonants. Let's look at the vowels. I, U, O, E, A. I'm not going to directly compare the set of vowels to the one in English because, frankly, English's vowels are a complete mess, and depend heavily on where you're from. Like, the official reference grammar of Vötgil provides examples of English words these vowels appear in, so if I made this chart based on my pronunciation of those words, it would look something like this. And if I were to then extrapolate from those pronunciations to, say, received pronunciation, it would look like this. Again, a better version would look something like this. Actually, you could probably even get away with something like this. If you were to limit English to these 3 vowels and the 17 consonants from earlier, it would sound something like this. Even though it might sound schwanz, it is still almost completely understandable to native English speakers. I'm not saying Eisenman should have been all minimalist about Vötgil, but he definitely could have simplified way more than he did. This unnecessarily large inventory is certainly to blame for Vötgil's weird orthography. We've seen unconventional implementations of the Latin alphabet before on this show, but Vötgil does something a little more innovative. See, like most auxlangs, Vötgil tries to be as clear with its spelling as possible, so it uses one letter per phoneme. However, English phonology, and therefore Vötgil phonology, doesn't fit the Latin alphabet so neatly. After assigning most letters to the sounds they typically make in English, though the use of the letter U for the sound is a little weird, Vötgil still has some letters left over. So it uses C for the sound sh, X for the sound th, and Q for the sound It looks a little weird, but at least it uses the full Latin alphabet. Unfortunately, there's still a few sounds left over after all that, which really should have been assigned to make the inventory smaller. Yet the inventory stayed the size it is, and Eisenman decided to reuse a few of the symbols for approximants for vowels. This goes against the idea of one sound per letter, but I guess Eisenman thought no one would notice because he still said every letter is pronounced exactly one way in the reference grammar. After that, there were still 2 sounds left over. For the back open vowel, Vötgil uses an O with an umlaut over it, since it's essentially a lower version of the sound O. And for the the voice dental fricative, Vötgil uses the letter eth, which also represents the sound in the IPA. These two extra letters make it just slightly more inconvenient for typing. In addition to the Latin alphabet, Vötgil has its own handcrafted writing system, which might be the worst writing system I've ever seen. Basically, each letter is given a number, and then that number is written in base 4, where 0 is white, 1 is gray, 2 is dark gray, and 3 is black. There are several problems with this system. First of all, it's not very computer-friendly, which wouldn't be a problem if it were pen and paper-friendly, which it isn't. However, the worst thing about this system, other than every single aspect of the way it looks, is the reasoning behind the order the letters go in. First, there's the punctuation, shown on the bottom of this chart for some reason. Then there's the vowels, sorted by tone, though really they're just circling through vowel space. U, o, e. This part is fine, though it's weird that only 2 of the 3 sometimes vowels went here. After the vowels come the consonants, allegedly sorted by place of articulation from back of the throat to front of the mouth. So if we reverse their order, we'll get them sorted neatly by place of articulation the same way the IPA does it. There's the bilabial sounds, then the labiodental sounds, then the alveolar sounds. Oh, but I guess we forgot about the dental sounds, so there they are. Okay, then the rest of the alveolar sounds, then the post-alveolar sounds, then the velar sounds, then the... Oh, wait, aren't there some approximants left? Shoot, forgot about those. Oh, yeah, and we also forgot about the nasal sounds. Okay, I think we're good, so now we're finally at the one glottal sound, and we're done, except for the velar nasal. Forgot about that one too, oops. What the heck? You could maybe make the argument that this kinda sorts by manner of articulation, but even then, there's no excuse for thinking that there's a consonant sound made further in the back of the throat than the glottis. I mean, it's not like Eisenman doesn't know what type of sound is, right? I mean, as we can clearly see from this table he made, it's obviously a glottal approximant. We haven't even started talking about the vocabulary and grammar yet. So, Vötgil has a 600-word vocabulary. Each word is based on an English word and is exactly 1 syllable and 3 letters long. This is an interesting idea. Since each word is the same length, you can write Vötgil without spaces. Can't say the same thing for speaking Vötgil, though. The allowed syllable structures are CVC and CCV. Since all words are in one of these two categories, all consonants, except at the beginning and end of a sentence, come in clusters of either 2 or 3 in a row. This is normal for English, which allows approximately too many consonants in a row, but English is weird. A lot of commonly spoken languages don't allow more than 1 consonant in a row, and since Vötgil has so many vowels, those languages' go-to repair strategies just won't work. The only good thing about this vocabulary is that the 3-letter restriction and the Anglocentrism sort of just cancel each other out. Common words like the are too short to be borrowed directly, so they have letters added to them, while most words are too long, so they're obscured. So the words aren't international enough to be recognizable by non-English speakers, but they aren't English enough to be recognized by English speakers. So what you end up with is a set of 600 words that'll be kind of familiar to you if you speak English. Again though, words common enough in English to be recognized by people who only know the basics are still obscured. Like the pronouns, for instance. I is too short, so it becomes nai. I mean, it's pronounced nai though? It's spelled nai, but it's pronounced nai for some reason? Whatever. You is too short, so it becomes yoon. She is too short, so it becomes, wait. Oh. Huh. Looks like there isn't a Vötgil word for she. Well, I guess that means the third-person pronouns were combined into one pronoun then. Makes sense, because they is just the right length to be adapted directly, and its use as an all-purpose third-person pronoun in English is becoming more and more common as, oh, well, looks like the word they doesn't mean anything. I guess the third-person pronoun is something else? Here, let me see. Oh, well, guess there aren't any third-person pronouns in Vötgil. Doesn't say that anywhere in the reference grammar, but I guess the inclusion of this one feature that literally every natural language has is where Vötgil draws the line. A suffix that makes a noun plural that's pronounced differently depending on the voiciness of the noun's final sound? Obviously. Passive and gerund forms of verbs? Would barely be a language without them. Third-person pronouns? Wow, Anglophone much? Not every language works like English, you know. Anyway, the vocabulary is small. It's not minimalist, but it tries to reduce vocabulary whenever possible, typically using the prefix vot, meaning opposite. You know, like in Esperanto. Yet it still has basic words for things that, given the small vocabulary, probably don't need to be there. Do there really need to be separate words for program and code? I think the least excusable word of the vocabulary, though, is Gil, which means English. 1, it's the only proper noun in the basic vocabulary. 2, it doesn't sound very much like English. And 3, Vötgil doesn't even have a standard way to use proper nouns. It's literally only there so Vötgil can be called the opposite of English, which, looking at any aspect of it, is really, really obviously not a good way to describe Vötgil. So after all that, the question is, how good is Vötgil compared to Lojban and Aoi? Well, I think it's clear that it's worse than Lojban. Lojban's vocabulary can be hard to remember, but at least its words flow easily and sound like similar words in multiple languages. Lojban's writing system is quirky, but at least it's easy to type on an ASCII keyboard. So what about Aoi? This one's a little tougher. My gut reaction to Aoi was certainly a lot more negative than my gut reaction to Vötgil. But the thing is, when I learned more about Aoi, I started hating it less and less. Sure, Aoi is hard to pronounce, but the philosophy behind it makes it all the more elegant. When I started learning more about Vötgil, on the other hand, I started liking it less. Oh, it's based on English and nothing else. Oh, the writing system is made of dots. Oh, there's no third-person pronouns or names. Oh, it's optimized for communication in Minecraft. All that in mind, Vötgil is the third best Conlang reviewed so far. Yeah, this is gonna be hard to edit. One letter per morpheme. Morpheme? No, it's not morpheme, silly. It's phoneme. Idiot. Okay.